Hi, this is Al Zalai. I thought I would just make up a quick video to show you how to use the data collection link that we are sending you for Tashkent, as that might be easier than trying to explain it in writing. Before I do that, I thought I would also give you a little bit of background about the project that I created since I have a chance to have the video up. So the first thing that you need to know is that this is just created for the inventory option, which is the easiest way to use iTree Eco. As we mentioned, there are several ways that you can use Eco, including the complete inventory, sample plot, which is a little bit more complex, could be time consuming, more for forested areas. So when you open up Eco Desktop, that's the first thing that you have to work with to create a project first that will be specific to the data collection link. So the link that I sent you will speak and communicate with my project only. It's not a universal link that you can use for other projects or you can send data where you want. It's one project, one link. They have a unique connection between them. Just to show you what I had to do, the first thing you do when you come into Eco is you have to create a project. And so that's the configuration step. So there's just a number. I'm going to go through this kind of quickly, but it'll just give you an idea of the screens and the process. There's manuals that explain this in great detail. So the first thing I have to do is we don't have a location or data for Tashkent or anywhere in Uzbekistan. So although I have this set up for Tashkent inventory and I'm just calling it a demonstration project, I have to actually use a location that is available within the Eco framework. So in Central Asia, we don't have any other locations set up, and so I have the option of using Tbilisi in Georgia, or there are two cities in Iran and a couple cities in Pakistan too. So we're very limited. And even these locations, some of them only have location information, but they do not have pollution or precipitation data. Now, since your project isn't specific to trying to look at ecosystem services, this may not be a big deal at all. So we're just using a substitute city location because we don't have something for Tashkent. And this is actually fairly simple to set up a new location too. So that's something that we can show you how to do that if you're interested in using Eco, and it'd be nice just to have a location for Tashkent. So what I had to do is use Tbilisi, and then the next thing would be to set up data collection parameters. So this is really the most important screen in addition to having the location. This is where you decide what data it is you want to collect, and you have to make the decisions based on your own project objectives, the resources that you have available to do the project, and maybe just thinking what's possible in a time frame too. So what you would like to do might not be possible, but maybe you can start small and scale up. So we use the term pilot project quite a bit because it'll give you an idea of how this works, and then you can decide maybe it's something that we can keep going with, or maybe it's something that isn't meeting our needs. And it is free, so that's all up to you to decide. What you can see here is when you're in the Eco desktop project, there's a lot of information, so this can be a little bit overwhelming. If you scroll down, you'll see explanations for all the data too. So there are many variables, and that's because Eco uses crown parameters and other parameters to estimate a lot of ecosystem services. So it gives you the minimum required field, which is tree species and DBH, and then it has recommended fields, data variables. And these are mostly because this will improve the accuracy of the crown volume estimates and then the leaf surface estimates, which are used in a lot of the ecosystem service estimates. So what happens if you don't have all these checked is that the accuracy of the ecosystem service estimates is just not as accurate. And that's okay for this particular project because that's not part of the objectives. So in this particular case, the only thing I have is species DBH. I checked strata area, which I'll show you why in a little bit, and then crown health, because I think this is an important variable. At a minimum, I like to recommend species DBH and crown health, but you don't have to collect this. But this is, to me, is something that lets you know if you're interested in the resource and management parameters, management needs. This is what could be very valuable in most traditional inventories. One thing about eco is that it uses percent dieback as opposed to a condition like fair, good, poor. And so it's a little bit less subjective, because one person might look at a tree and say it's fair, another might say it's good, another person might say it's fair. So in eco terminology, you look at the tree and you say there is 5% dieback, and then eco equates that to equaling good. This can be customized, but it has a lot of different ranges, and this also affects the ecosystem services too. The other thing I turned on here is maintenance task. Again, this is optional too, and so you decide if this is something that you're interested in. These fields can be populated to collect information that you might be interested for management objectives. So I have sanitation, prune, clear for utility, removal, treat pest or disease. And again, you don't have to use this, but this is just to let you know that that is there available. And then also, lastly, I turned on one of the custom fields, and in the specs for the project, it mentioned capturing data for trees that were over 100 years old. So this could be somewhere where you could capture that in the custom fields. And then so all I could do with this is you have to give it the variables. And in this case, I just have a yes. So that means you'll have that option on the data collection side. And what happens is if you come across a tree that you feel is a 100-year-old tree, you just check that box and say yes, that's one. And so it'll be assuming that all others are no. So that's just a way. Again, this really isn't meant for doing traditional inventories. So what we're doing is trying to adapt it as best we can. So one other variable that I mentioned that I turned on is the project and strata area. So one of the things that I saw in the specs is having a geographic area. So here again, this is something that you can decide depending on the scope, the areas that you're interested in. I just use districts that I could find for Uzbekistan. They're not all there, but I just wanted to create a few. And in this case, what you have to do is when you use the stratification, this is nice because it'll let you see results based on these areas too. So the trees in each one of these districts, you'll be able to see that breakdown. You have to also give it an area. You see here there's 0 number of trees, and that's because the application will populate that as you start populating it with inventory data. So that's pretty much project setup. And once you do that, the next step would be to create a data collection link. So what we would have to do there, and I've already done this, and this is an option too. So right now I've got a project created. If I go to trees, it's empty because I haven't added anything. I can manually type these in here, which isn't all that fun, but that can be done. One thing to keep in mind is only one person can populate the desktop. So it actually is nice to use the mobile data collection system. And so in order to do that, we have to submit that to a server. So from the desktop, what this does is it creates a data collection link on our server, and then that will send an email out or create a data collection link with this unique key. And the key is what allows a phone or a mobile device to communicate with our server, and then the project manager that has the desktop can pull that data into this project. So I can sit here in Chicago, you could collect data with this link, submit it to the server, and I should be able to pull it into this project and populate it in a perfect world. We'll see how it works because we have no idea. It's never been tested in Uzbekistan. So what happens is when I submit this and send this out, it sends an email out. So what I usually do is send this to myself, and then I've got this data collection link. So this is the link that I'm sending you also. And I'll have a separate video and we'll kind of walk through what that looks like in a scenario so that you can actually test out the data collection link. Okay. So that's a quick introduction to the Eco Desktop and how you have to get to that point where we'll actually use the data collection link.